Hello and welcome to a podcast all about the Worcester Life Stories project. My name is Sheena Payne-Lunn and for the last 3 years I've been running the Heritage Project and discovering a whole host of new things about Worcester. I wanted to find a way to share some of my discoveries with you, so I've gone back to where it all started, a small room in the Tudor House Museum in Worcester. Back in 2020, just as lockdown began, a group of volunteers started indexing thousands of old photos from the Worcester City collection. The volunteer room is just through here, and they're meeting today, so let's go and join them. Hi everyone. I'm joined here by John, and Ken. John, if I come to you first, what were the photos that you were using and what did you do with them?
Well, we started life with a collection of photographs for the Changing Face of Worcester collection, but in latter times we've now had the Worcester Life Stories photos, and we're basically going through the photographs, trying to capture all the details in the photographs so that it makes them more searchable and, put in a bit of information behind them. So, we're just looking at what the locations are, what the dates of the photographs are, and what we can see in that photograph, whether that be old adverts, old cars, that type of thing. So we're gradually working our way through the directories on that basis so that information can be used in the future to bring some of these photographs to life.
And so, John, how did lockdown affect the group?
Well, actually, it was a bit mixed blessing in many ways because we used to meet physically here. Of course, when lockdown came, we couldn't do that. So we actually went online. So we had to set up a system on Zoom to actually do it. It's now been quite useful because we've been able to get participants from quite widely spread. We have one person who joins usually from Manchester, another one who lives part-time in France, and it's been a real benefit to be able to do it on Zoom. And so we've now been carrying on with that and doing hybrid sessions since we've been permitted to do so.
Yeah, that's been really brilliant, hasn't it? Ken, what did you get out of it?
Well, first of all, I've met some very nice people, initially when we were down here, but then on Zoom. I also found, having worked for the cooperative movement all my life, mostly in Worcester, the changing face of Worcester has opened my eyes to all the other organisations which are in Worcester. It's amazing how it has changed, though, and as I say, I thoroughly enjoy it.
As the photos started to circulate on social media, they also started to prompt memories. One that really sticks in my mind was a lady who contacted me because she recognised her father in one of the photos from the early 1960s. The photo shows him leaning on a shovel, part of a demolition crew clearing slum housing in the Moors area of the city. He sadly died shortly after the photo was taken, and this was only the second photo his daughter had ever seen of him. The power of photos to prompt memories has been a key part of the Worcester Life Stories project. We learnt this at a launch event in the Guildhall when we met Pat, who shared this memory with us from the 1950s.
I'm Pat Richardson. I live in St John's now, but I did live in Oldbury Road in the self-built houses. In the 50s, we used to walk from there to the public hall in the Corn Market to go to the dance in the public hall. On the way was Hepworth's Corner, which was a man's outfitters. It's now David Christopher on the cross. And in the recessed doorway, the teddy boys used to congregate, and they were something to behold. They were fantastic, as long as they didn't move, because their drainers were too tight, and their brothel creepers were too high, and their DA might get disturbed. And we would go to the dance, and later on, they would appear, 6 of them, to walk through. They never danced because they couldn't, with their trousers too tight. And they would stand by the band. We had a big band playing every Saturday. And just stand there until it was closing time, and off they would go. But it was quite exciting. This was in 1957, when I was about 18 or so. And we used to wait for them to appear because everything would stop when they walked through the door and paraded down to the front of the stage.
With this amazing image of the Worcester Teddy Boys filling our heads, we then met Biddy, whose memory went back much further than that. I'll be honest with you, when we started this project, we didn't expect to collect memories of the opening of the Worcester Bridge in 1932, but to our amazement, Biddy was actually there.
Worcester was known years ago as the poor city, poor, proud and pretty. My last day at school, I went with the school choir to Cripplegate Park to sing to the Prince of Wales who'd come to visit us.
He was doing something on the Worcester Bridge, opening part.
Yeah, opening the new part of the Worcester Bridge. The school choirs all went down to Cripplegate Park to sing for him.
And how did he get to Worcester?
By plane,
To where?
Bilford Road.
What she's referring to there was Worcester's airfield at Purdeswell, just off the Bilford Road, which later became the base for RAF Worcester during the Second World War. We really felt we were onto something collecting memories as vivid as this from such a long time ago. Sadly, Biddy, who was almost 103, passed away soon after we recorded these wonderful memories. But this wasn't the only thing we were doing on this project. There was another strand to it, and one with huge future potential in terms of caring for older people and people living with dementia, and frankly, any of us who want to store personal memories in a safe place. So what we did was join forces with the Herefordshire and Worcestershire Health and Care Trust and the Association for Dementia Studies at the University of Worcester to develop a digital life stories platform. It works a bit like an online photo album. It's free to create, unique to you, and a space where you or your family or your carers can upload photos, memories, recordings and video clips. It means that everything about you can be saved in one place, and it's a private space, so only those you allow can have access to it. One of the first people to trial the Life Stories platform was Ron Baldwin, a wonderful man who became the face of our project. Ron shared his photos with us and recorded brief descriptions of each of them.
Myself and my mother in the gardening of Bowling Green Terrace, with Mr. and Mrs. Hunt's shop on the corner in the background. And yes, my mother, she was a lovely lady. And that's a good photograph. I like that one. This one is taken in outside Mum's house in Bowling Green Terrace, number 26. But yes, it's me again, I'm afraid. And it's quite a good photograph, that is, of Bowling Green Terrace. Please note, it's got to be in the 40s. Note the bin for pig food in the background.
The bin for pig food. Of course, nothing was wasted in those days. Sadly, Ron passed away last summer. He really embraced this project and helped us so much along the way, and it was a real privilege to know him. So whilst the Life Stories team were working very hard to develop the Life Stories platform, I had a different mission, which was to create a digital map of Worcester, onto which we could upload the huge collection of digitised photos that we talked to the volunteers about earlier. The map is called Know Your Place Worcester. It's kind of like a Google map, containing all sorts of layers of information, including historic photos, historic maps, and it can also store audio and video clips. And it's designed for you, anyone listening to this. If you want to find out more about the place where you live, you can look at what's there and you can add your own photos and recordings. We've got it started by uploading stuff from Worcester City's oral history collections, and I'm just sitting in front of the map now. Let's get it loaded. If I click on the little green dot here by the commandery, there we go, I can see photos and listen to the voices of people who lived and worked there when it was the Littlebury Print Works. One of my favourites on here is an extract from an interview with Henry Badham. Let's click on that. He was a tenant of the Littleburys and he lived in the cottage which is now the museum entrance. Here's his account of meeting the commandery's Grey Lady.
It was quite eerie. It was an eerie place. I always thought so anyway. And on the first occasion, it was just a figure coming down the drive with a kind of cowl thing over her head. I couldn't see the features distinctly, but she struck me as being old anyway. And She was just coming down, walking slowly towards me, and then when she got to the gate to Miss Davis's house, she walked up the drive and just seemed to go, well, she just suddenly wasn't there any longer, so I assumed she'd gone into the house. But it was quite cold, eerie cold, and a funny feeling. And next day, I asked Miss Davis whether she'd had a visitor, and no, she had no one visiting her at all. And that was it. And then later on, about the same time at night, because I was coming back from the meeting at the Oddfellows Hall in New Street, so it would have been probably round about 10 o'clock time at night, dark, and I saw exactly the same figure coming down, but this time it just seemed to evaporate. It seemed to come right towards me, and then it wasn't there any longer. But it was definitely visible, certainly not human.
Oh, how creepy. And this is just an example of the kind of amazing personal stories we've got on Know Your Place Worcester. I really recommend you going online and having a good browse. You can even upload your own photos and memories too. It's really easy. We showed groups of children from 4 Worcester primary schools how to do this. And we also got them together with residents of 4 sheltered housing schemes. They spent a happy time swapping stories. One of our meetings was at the top of the Cripplegate Tower, where Terry shared his memories with pupils from St Clement's School.
Hello, I'm Terry. I remember this being built as I went to work at the porcelain, Royal Worcester Porcelain. I hadn't seen high-rise flats ever. How rise they going? And they kept going up and God. But this, where you're standing now, used to stand on here, was a hotel on this corner, where this building is now. They demolished it, called Cripplegate Hotel, where the name comes from, Cripplegate. That's where it comes from.
Can you tell me where you were born and brought up?
Oh yes, originally in Cheshire, and then I came to Hereford, and then come to Worcester. So I'm not a really, I suppose you wouldn't say I was a Worcester person.
What is your favourite building and why?
I like cathedrals. Worcester Cathedral it's a wonderful building. Have you been in there? Oh, it's a wonderful building, it really is. But it never got bombed in the war, so it's still here. They miss Worcester.
Well, they mostly missed Worcester, although one bomb did land at the Mecco Works in St John's and unfortunately killed 7 people. I've just walked along the shambles from Tudor House to Church Street, and it brings back lots of memories of the biggest night in the project's calendar, which was our virtual time travel trail last October. We wanted to showcase some of Worcester's amazing buildings and link them to stories we'd captured during the project, and with the help of the Guildhall School of Music and Drama and a lot of large projectors, we did just that. So you'll have to use your imagination here, but on a lovely clear night last October, these streets were crowded with people watching huge images projected onto the buildings around me. The images lit up the night sky and transported people back 50 or 60 years. Here at St Swithin's Church, one of the projections was a film of Stuart talking about his memories of Worcester. This really was oral history as you've never seen it before, and on a very grand scale. Here's a short bit of Stuart's interview where he's talking about his teenage years and social life.
We've lost a lot of the pubs. For instance, where I live, we've lost the Mayflower, the Drake's Drum and the Copper Tops. The Copper Tops was a brilliant pub. Lots of people my age had their weddings there. And my sisters worked in the restaurant, I worked behind the bar occasionally, my kids worked behind the bar, and it was a real hub of the community. I played skittles when I first left school. You would play at lots of different social clubs that belonged to Wards, Heenans, Metal Box, all these big companies that in the city had social clubs. The Mecco had a social club. There was a blue calf club down at Lower Wick, which was Bennett's Dairies, and all these little social clubs generally had a Skittles team. You know, there was a big scene in those days for crib, dominoes, all different sort of leagues in the pubs. And over the years, as the big factories closed down, you lost the social clubs and things like that. I think the university has been brilliant for the city, and there seems to be a bit of a renaissance.
Certainly Worcester was buzzing that night. We had crowds of people touring the city, from toddlers to grandparents and everything in between. It was the perfect way to celebrate Worcester's beautiful buildings and the stories attached to them. And we haven't stopped there. It's all been captured in a book which you can buy all over Worcester. I've got a copy of it in front of me now. Really pleased with the way it's turned out. Lots of lovely photos and memories in it. QR code links to more stuff online, so you can listen to the voices of people that we've interviewed throughout the project. And we're continuing to digitise photos and record stories, even though the Worcester Life Stories project is coming to an end. In fact, this podcast is coming towards the end, but the last word must go to Paul Edwards from Platform Housing, who has helped us enormously throughout the 3 years of the project. Right from the early stages, he connected us with local people and promoted our online photo quizzes, which thousands of you took part in every week, especially during lockdown.
The Worcester Life Stories has brought a lot of pleasure to a lot of people. Seeing the old pictures, especially through the pandemic, and people comments and listening to the whole thing about the project, it's been fantastic. Yeah, it's been worthwhile. From me, when I was sharing some of the pictures of Worcester Life Stories and sharing your quizzes, people thoroughly engaged, and it was what helped, in some cases, helped them through that pandemic, especially the early stages, because it's been a fantastic project from start to finish.
Thank you so much for all your support, Paul. The Worcester Life Stories project may be coming to an end, but the work on sharing photos and memories continues. Do check out our 2 platforms, Know Your Place Worcester and Life Stories Herefordshire and Worcestershire, and consider recording your own relatives and adding their memories to the websites. Thank you for listening to our podcast. Goodbye.